Everyone thinks Daniel is searching for answers about his sister. That's the story episode 3 wants us to believe. Helen is chasing a classified recording. Daniel wants to know what really happened during the Iran mission. Henry is desperately trying to shut the investigation down before it reaches the public. On the surface, it looks like another conspiracy involving the military, government secrecy, and a family searching for closure after an unimaginable tragedy. But after watching the episode closely, I don't think Daniel's investigation is really about his sister anymore. I think she's become the doorway to something much bigger. Because the moment Daniel listens to that damaged recording from the pilots, he isn't just hearing the final moments of a failed mission. He's listening to the first known evidence that the end of the world had already begun. And if that's true, then episode 3 quietly reveals the most important discovery in the entire series. The apocalypse wasn't something humanity reacted to. It was something powerful people saw coming long before everyone else. The founders didn't save civilization after the disaster. They spent years preparing for it while the rest of the world continued living as though tomorrow was guaranteed. Stay with me until the very end, because I think Daniel has unknowingly uncovered the very first lie that eventually led to the creation of every single silo. Before we dive into today's theory, do me one quick favor. If the founders haven't already hidden this video somewhere deep inside the algorithm, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, it helps the channel grow, and unlike accepting a classified government briefing, you won't have to sign away your memory afterward. And make sure you watch this video from beginning to end, because the deeper Daniel digs into the Iran mission, the closer he gets to discovering that the greatest secret in Silo isn't who survived the apocalypse, it's who knew it was coming. Let's quickly recap what episode 3 actually shows us. While Juliette is secretly rejecting the memory-suppressing medication and searching for Lucas inside Silo 18, Daniel and Helen continue following the trail left behind by the mysterious Iran mission. James Alameda reveals that the pilots weren't using modern encrypted communications. Instead, they were forced to rely on outdated equipment, making it possible for someone to intercept and preserve their final transmissions. That small detail changes the entire investigation. Suddenly, Helen has a real path toward evidence instead of rumors. They track down Steve, a dark web operator who claims to possess the missing recording. And for the first time, Daniel hears the voices of the pilots as everything begins to fall apart. They're confused, they're frightened. They're describing a strange black substance disabling their aircraft before communication abruptly ends. Most viewers naturally focus on the emotional impact of Daniel hearing his sister's final moments. But I think the writers want us to focus on something else entirely. The black substance. It's mentioned so quickly that it's easy to overlook, yet it may be the single most important clue episode 3 gives us. Ask yourself one simple question. Why include that detail at all? The writers could have explained the crash through mechanical failure, enemy fire, or severe weather. Any of those would have served the emotional purpose of the scene. Instead, they introduce an unknown substance capable of disabling advanced military aircraft. That isn't just an accident, that's setup. In mystery storytelling, strange details are rarely random. They're planted because they'll matter later. And if this black substance eventually connects to whatever destroyed the outside world, then Daniel isn't listening to an isolated military disaster. He's listening to the earliest recorded encounter with the force that changed human history forever, that completely changes the timeline we've been imagining. For years, we've assumed the founders reacted to the apocalypse. Civilization collapsed, governments fell, humanity panicked. The founders built the silos to save whoever they could. It's a logical sequence because that's how disaster stories usually work. But Silo has been quietly undermining that assumption since the beginning of Season 3. Every flashback introduces another piece of evidence, suggesting remarkable preparation long before the world officially ended. The silos aren't temporary shelters thrown together during an emergency. They're massive engineering projects requiring enormous funding, political cooperation, advanced technology, and years, possibly decades of construction. 50 underground cities don't appear overnight. Neither does the algorithm, neither does the memory program. Neither do the protocols governing every aspect of life inside the silos. The scale of the project tells us one unavoidable truth. Someone had time. A lot of time. And the only way they could have had that much time is if they already knew something catastrophic was approaching. That's why Daniel's discovery matters so much. He isn't uncovering the end of the story, he's uncovering the beginning. The recording doesn't simply document a tragedy. It documents the moment powerful institutions first realized the world was facing something beyond ordinary warfare. And instead of telling humanity, they started preparing for a future only they believed was coming. The government's response to the Iran mission may be the biggest clue of all, because the cover-up begins almost immediately. Think about what Daniel and Helen actually uncover in episode 3. They don't find an official report. They don't discover a public investigation. They don't even find evidence that anyone seriously tried to explain what the pilots witnessed. Instead, they have to chase forgotten recordings through the dark web, speak to people operating in the shadows, and risk everything just to hear a few fragmented minutes of audio. That tells us the real story wasn't merely classified, it was deliberately erased. Governments classify military operations all the time, but erasing the evidence entirely is something very different. You only do that when the truth itself becomes more dangerous than the event you're trying to hide. If officials believed the black substance represented a threat unlike anything humanity had encountered before, then suppressing that information may have been the first decision that eventually led to the founders' philosophy. Don't tell the public. Control the narrative, preserve order, even if it means sacrificing the truth. And that's where the flashback storyline suddenly connects to everything happening inside Silo 18. For 3 seasons, we've watched the founders. System-justified deception in the name of survival. Citizens are lied to about the outside world. History is rewritten. Memories are suppressed. Curiosity is treated as a threat instead of a strength. Those ideas didn't appear out of nowhere. Someone had to believe that humanity was incapable of handling the truth before they could build an entire civilization around hiding it. What if the Iran mission was the moment that belief took root? Imagine world leaders listening to the same recording Daniel hears. They realize something unknown is spreading, conventional defenses are failing, and panic could destroy society long before the actual catastrophe arrives. In that moment, the debate may have shifted from "how do we stop this?" to "how do we control what people know about it?" The founders didn't invent secrecy. They inherited it from the governments that came before them. Then there's the black substance itself, which may be far more significant than a mysterious plot device. The episode never explains what it is, and that's exactly why it stands out. The pilots don't describe an enemy aircraft or a missile. They describe something they don't understand, something capable of disabling advanced military technology without warning. If this substance is connected to the event that eventually destroys civilization, then episode 3 has quietly shown us the apocalypse in its earliest stages, not the explosions, not the collapse of governments, the first warning. History often remembers the day everything ended, but it forgets the months or years when the warning signs were ignored, dismissed, or hidden. Daniel may have just uncovered that forgotten chapter, the moment the future changed, while almost nobody realized it. That also explains why Henry is so desperate to stop Daniel and Helen's investigation. On the surface, it looks like he's protecting classified information, or shielding powerful institutions from embarrassment. But what if the stakes are much higher than that? What if Henry understands that this recording doesn't just expose a military secret? It exposes the origin of the founders themselves. If the public ever learns that influential people knew the world was in danger long before the apocalypse, then every official explanation about the silos begins to crumble. The founders would no longer be remembered as heroes who reacted to an impossible disaster. They'd be remembered as people who prepared in silence, while billions of others continued living without any warning at all. That's the kind of revelation capable of destroying every piece of legitimacy the system has built over the last 352 years. And that's why I believe Daniel's investigation is far more important than it first appears. He thinks he's searching for answers about his sister, but every clue is leading him toward the greatest secret in Silo. The real mystery isn't who survived the end of the world. It's who knew the end was coming and chose to keep that knowledge hidden. If episode 3 is setting up that revelation, then Daniel isn't just uncovering a buried recording. He's uncovering the first lie in a chain of lies that stretches from the Iran mission to the construction of the silos, the creation of the algorithm, the memory suppression program, and the carefully controlled society Juliette is fighting to expose. In other words, Daniel may have just discovered the truth that didn't simply explain the end of the world. It helped create the world that came after it.